don't think you were here.
As the mayor, I've made a determination that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent due to the current disaster declaration in effect. With that in mind, I'd like to call to order the Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, July 27th. If the clerk would call the roll, please.
Mike Wayland.
Here.
John Vigezzi.
Here.
Annette Carper.
Here.
Tom Cook.
Present.
Gail Carper.
Here.
Tammy Lee Brown Edwards.
Here.
Dennis Moon.
Here.
7 present.
We have a quorum, thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to the council under the public comment section of tonight's agenda? Alrighty, I believe we do have three written public comments. Madam Clerk.
To whom it may concern, I am a resident of the Chicago area, and they have put up 5G towers all over the city and suburbs. My sister and I are very sensitive to these high frequencies, which, at the levels they are at, are harmful to everyone. We are moving to Macomb because it is one of the few remaining areas without 5G. Radio frequency radiation is a carcinogenic to humans, and people develop heart damage, cancers, and DNA damage in response to cell phone radiation. Also, cell phone tower radiation can cause memory loss, sleep disorders, and changes in mood. If you are considering putting up any 5G towers in the Macomb area, please reconsider or hold a town hall meeting to discuss the issues. I'm not only an advocate for my health, but for everyone around me, my community. Please research the harmful effects of the 5G and come to a knowledge-based decision regarding putting up 5G towers in the Macomb area. Erica B. Hello, I am writing to submit my request for the below public comment to be read at tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, I am unable to attend. Sincerely, Sarah Schoper. Dear council members, mayor, and others, I respectfully request that you endorse the body cams for the Macomb Police campaign recently started by myself and a few other community members. More information can be found at https://GF.me/me/YH322G. I believe the campaign goal is achievable, but only if we all work toward it. Furthermore, it is needed. This campaign goes beyond sign proclamations, book clubs, and photo opportunities and brings about an additional tool that many in our community have shared that would help them feel safe. Economically speaking, it is a wise investment too. Not only has the Macomb Police Department committed to maintaining the body-worn camera program once it's up and running, which includes equipment, software, and personnel training. It also allows more people in our community to feel comfortable enough to go out and experience the local businesses. I assure you that this is not currently the case. Furthermore, it is one way we can show the WIU community that we want to and will better our city community that they are a part of as members of the WIU community. Again, anyone interested in learning more about the campaign can go to the website https://GF.me/me/YH322G. Thank you, Sarah Schoper Salazar. Dear Mayor Inman and Macomb City Council, last fall, a hate group marched in WIU's homecoming parade. We brought it to your attention, yet the city and WIU's administration said nothing to condemn it. At the parade, our Racial Justice Coalition leadership marched with a Black Lives Matter banner and had racist and misogynistic comments yelled at them throughout their route. That WIU homecoming was boycotted by many of our Black WIU alumni to send a message to the city to address the racism. You and WIU's administration were silent about the hate group and refused to publicly acknowledge the boycott, depriving this community of the knowledge that many Black alumni and citizens wanted action from you and WIU. Back in February of this year, the Democratic women of McDonough County warned about the many complaints received about vehicles threatening Black folks in the community. We urged action to protect people. There was no identifiable public response. On July 8th, the McDonough County Voice article reported online threats by county residents threatening to murder the Black Lives Matter protesters in Chandler Park. These threats of violence have so far been met with silence by our city leadership and WIU's administration. The Black Lives Matter Park protests in Macomb are organized by a grassroots movement begun by women who have diligently held protests throughout this summer. They have been subjected to escalating threats and harassment. Members of our Racial Justice Coalition attended the protest on Friday, July 24th, 2020. We were greatly alarmed at the sharp rise in both the number of hateful responses and the escalation in degree of hateful expressions of racism and misogyny. A truck blew the red light intentionally, tires squealing, while the white male driver almost hitting two vehicles. Another white male driver repeatedly drove by, swerving in his lane as he leaned out of the driver's window and yelled, "Fuck you, white power, bitch," and other hateful comments while flipping people off and even blocking the roadway. There were many vehicles yelling racist comments. A white man showed up with a racist "White Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter" sign as a counter-protester, not wearing a mask and refusing to adhere to distancing for safety. We think city leaders should be immensely concerned about the safety of those community members peacefully using their constitutional rights to express themselves and peaceably assemble. As the BLM movement has expanded and held peaceful protests across the country in smaller towns like Bushnell, the harassment and explicit threats of violence have only grown. If the leadership of the self-proclaimed welcoming and diverse college town can't condemn threats against protesters, how can we expect Black people, including Black WIU students, to feel and be safe in any community in this county? We condemn all threats and those making them. We condemn those putting lives at risk. We urge you as city leaders to condemn the threats and make a strong, visible public stance against escalating violence and harassment. When a community's leadership appears tolerant of such racism and misogynistic behavior, it escalates. What will it take for you to speak up? Who will have to be hurt before you act in defense of peaceful protesters and allies? We urge you to act now. Your silence is taken as consent. Speak up before tragedy occurs. Heather McMeekin, President. Becky Danner, Second Vice President, submitted on behalf of the Democratic women of McDonough County. And that's all.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to the council under the public comment section of tonight's agenda? Hearing none, we'll move on to item number 1, discussion on an ordinance to create a Class R liquor license for the Chicago Beef Factory. This ordinance had first reading at last Monday's City Council meeting. A memorandum is in your packet from the Community Development Coordinator, and that's attached for your review. John, can you come up and go over that for us, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The memo attached details the communications the Office of Community Development has had with Mr. Kokel since early in 2019. And most of the communication has come after the collapse of the building at 301 South Johnson that is also owned by Mr. Kokel. Most of the issues that were brought about in the early communications were mitigated when Mr. Kokel did take out a demolition permit and demolish the rear half of the structure on 225 West Jefferson Street, as well as capping the utilities on 301 South Johnson in May of 2020. But there have been continued issues with the property on 225 West Jefferson. To summarize, the entire roof will need to be replaced. The fascia needs to be replaced. At least 4 of the trusses will need to be replaced. The gutters and downspouts need work, and all of the broken glass and windows need to be repaired. Those repairs have not been completed as of July 23rd, 2020. The current deadline that the city's building inspector gave is August 15th of next month. So I just wanted to update council on the progress and the history on that property.
Any questions for John? Alderman Carper.
Have the people cleaned up the property yet? This has been something, that's my neighborhood, and I've had numerous people in the neighborhood call me about what's still remaining on that property: broken glass, wires, broken cement. And I have not seen any progress made on that property in terms of cleaning it up for, let's see, probably a year now. It's still a mess, and you don't address that in here, that what was taken down is still a mess and looks horrible and is dangerous.
I think there are a lot of issues on that property. These are what we have an open communication and deadlines given on particularly the property, the remaining bus barn. I would concur with you that the cleanup from the demolition has not been to where we would like it to be. Just because we haven't listed that out doesn't mean that's not something we would address. The immediate goal was to get that building in a safer situation as the back of it's still open.
And he has no requirement to clean up the property that's already been demolished?
He certainly does, and again, we've had a lot of communication with Mr. Kokel regarding that property, and if he wants to address.
Can we do something besides communicate with them? Can we do something that has a little bit more force to it?
The city did issue tickets on the previous property, 3 tickets, and again, with the demolition of the rear half of the structure, those tickets were dismissed as he made significant progress on that building. As half of it is still structurally present but has major issues, we are going through our procedure, and if we don't have resolution by August 15th, tickets would be the next step.
And have tickets been issued for the remaining glass and concrete pieces
have.
and wires and other dangerous items on that property?
We have not at this point in time. We certainly could do that. I'd like to send a separate letter so we follow our 2-notice procedure.
Haven't we sent enough letters at this point?
We have sent quite a few letters.
Then why aren't we doing something beyond sending letters?
Because progress was made. I mean, the half of the structure was demolished in May, and so then we reset all of our timelines and began again.
I'm still talking about the original property that was demolished when snow hit it over a year ago.
On 301 South Johnson?
Yeah, right on the corner there. And there's still all kinds of glass and wires and dangerous things sticking out of the ground there for anybody who goes anywhere near it. And that's been sitting there now, as far as I can tell, over a year in that condition.
Can I have a point of order? I'd like to ask a question of probably the attorney. Is this in reference to the applicant's background or his relationship to the city? Because it really has nothing to do with the liquor application. So I want to tie it to the application, or we need to have this conversation at a different time. This is not an agenda item.
I think we can tie it to the application because it deals with property
I want to make
maintenance.
it clear that that's.
Okay. I'm talking about how this particular person who's wanting a liquor
That's
license
not the way the
maintains
conversation
property.
started, though.
So Alderman Carper,
I would
that's,
ask the attorney for an opinion on how to proceed with this line of questioning.
So to the extent that there are continued violations or asserted continued violations of existing ordinances, it would be relevant to the application, but we can certainly rein it in a little bit. I think that we've got a memorandum and discussion from Mr. Bannon indicating that there are violations outstanding on properties owned by the applicant. I would agree, Mr. Moon, that I don't know that we need to get into the specific details other than to understand the extent of those current outstanding issues.
Thank you.
And it is listed on the factors for issuance of license.
That's correct.
The other properties are.
Alderman Carper, did you have any other questions for Mr. Bannon?
No?
Okay. Mr. Moon, anything else?
No, I mean, I don't know where the discussion's going now about the license, but,
Okay.
I mean, I'm not happy with the application.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Vajezi.
As Alderman Carper mentioned, in the factors of issuance of the license, there is stated here about the character, nature, and location of the proposed establishment.
Take a seat, please.
I just have a couple quick questions for Mr. Kokel. The first one is, last week he had mentioned that, yes, he had taken care of all of his bills, everything was up to date, but can you clarify for me, are all of the taxes for the buildings and all of your properties up to date as of today?
Mr. Kokel, I'm sorry, you can step up now. Thank you.
Yes, excuse me, yes. I
So
pay
they
all
are-
my taxes.
They're paid up to date 100% as of today.
Yeah, I pay them every year. Comes to about $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 here in town.
Okay. And then the second question I have in reference to that is, you have a liquor manager that you've already hired, or are you in the process of actually trying to locate somebody?
I've hired him, and I gave all my information in the application originally, and he lives here in town. One of the rules is he has to live within the city limits, he or she.
Okay. And another question is, what will be your hours of operation? Somebody would go back to last week,
9 a.m. to 11 p.m.
9 a.m. to 11 p.m. Okay, now with the liquor license coming to you, that does give you the option to stay open later. Are you planning on staying open later than 11 o'clock?
Yes.
Okay,
On
so your
certain
hours will
nights.
not be 9 a.m. till 11 p.m.
Well, with the COVID and everything going now, when we opened, it was 11 to 11. But now with the liquor license, I'm telling you, it's going to be 9 to 11. And if we decide to extend it on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday nights like we did, we'll definitely let your attorney behind me know.
Okay.
If we need to do. Whatever we have to do in procedure, we'll do it.
Okay, because one of my concerns is looking at this, there's not a clear business plan of what you want to do within the establishment. You have a very good product, and I understand that COVID was an impact and closed you down for a little bit, but
I'm
trying to
still
start up brand new, I don't see a clear game plan of what you want to do. I'm looking at your map of what the outline of the restaurant, and that was kind of hand-drawn. I'm looking at the information that you've given the city.
Sure.
My recommendation would be open the restaurant first, come back in 6 months after you know what your hours going to be, what you're going to be able to have for business, and then come back and reapply for a liquor license. You're trying to do all this at one time, and I just see too many things, and there's not a clear, definite program of what you want to do.
What do you want to know? We opened with the idea that we were going to ask for a liquor license in the spring. The COVID hit, so now we're past the spring and we're here now. That was always our original plan, is to open, get all the bugs out of the system, get our food right, get everything right, and then we're going to come and ask for a liquor license. And that's why we're here. We would have been here months ago, but the COVID. And with the COVID, I do want to answer a lot of questions for Ms. Carper over here. I hope she asks me a bunch of them. But on that project over there, we would have been here probably in, I don't know, I first talked to the mayor probably in January or February. I had mentioned it to him. And then I think we filed the application in, June. But I had mentioned to him that I want to get a liquor license. I had mentioned to him before I opened that I was going to get a liquor license.
Okay. Based on what you just said, so you wanted to open up, kind of get all your ducks in a row,
Yep.
and then apply for a liquor license.
Yes.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Maybe you should open up now,
We've already been
get all of your
open.
ducks in a row, and then apply for a liquor license. Because
We
you were
already
open
been
for how long before you were shut down for COVID?
We closed on March 16th for COVID, and the reason why we closed, because the governor was kind of up in the air
with what he was gonna do with your health department and all health departments across the state. I talked to many different health departments, and, you know, we were new, we were just getting our delivery program together, you know, and we were just kind of working the bugs out on that. Some of our staff left town, obviously, because they didn't have to be in school. Some of our locals, you know, so it ended up, I just shut the door on March 16th till we figured out what we were gonna do. And we didn't get any state, a lot of your restaurants are open right now because they got these state loans where they could, you know, where they had to bring their people back. We didn't get that, so that's another reason why we don't have to open. Where a lot of those restaurants were under the gun to open and bring their employees back.
Okay, so what you're stating is that as of right now, you have all of your employees hired, you have your delivery taken care of, you have everything set so that way the day that you open, you're able to go 100% without any fumbling.
Well, I'm not gonna say it's perfect, John, but I would say we're 95% there because we already had the run of it. We have all our suppliers, everything in line. All we have to do is make a phone call and we can be in business. And like I said, we have no mandates from the state, whereas some people did. I could open one day a week if I wanted to right now.
Yeah,
But-
so your new manager is set up that he has his liquor license, your employees are trained as far as serving alcohol?
Before we serve one alcohol, they'll all be trained again, if they even claim they're trained, and some of them claim they're already trained. But we'll train them to my specifications.
Okay, just on my recommendation, based on what I'm seeing from the information you've turned in, what you've stated, again, my recommendation would be open up, get everything you need to be done, and then come back and reapply.
I appreciate
Okay.
your thoughts. Can I go back to you, Gail?
Well, let me just say that I'm, really concerned about the city giving you more when, first, you have a history of not maintaining.
Can I do a timeline over there on that?
Let me
for you?
finish first.
Okay.
You have a history of not maintaining the properties you've had for years. We gave you the revolving loan on the current place, and it took you a lot longer to open than you had originally said. And I know COVID hit you, but that wasn't the only reason that your opening
Right.
was delayed. And I'm concerned about both your financial responsibility and your property maintenance ability, because it doesn't look good to me.
Okay. Well, let me give you a little timeline. We were hit with that snow load on the building. Okay. I had that building rented out to an old-time Macomb person, you know, old Max, for 5 years, I believe. Okay. I kept him in there, and I got very little to no rent. I still haven't collected it. The snow load came, and what's the expensive part of tearing a building down? It's getting rid of the material. Okay? So we got rid of the material. We did keep the concrete there that's there. You do see that there.
Right.
Okay? There's a possibility of a future building. Concrete's expensive. If you remember, I went through the expense of digging out the tanks. Do you remember seeing that in the neighborhood?
Oh, I remember it very well, all of it. I live
Okay.
right around the corner.
Right, I know you do. I dug all those out, and, that was a very expensive project. That project cost $6,000 less than I paid for the property, okay, originally. Now, since that front building went down, the back building was always not in the best of repair,
Right.
so I started getting letters on that, okay? So I took the south end of the building down, and the reason why I took the south end of the building down is because the north end is in pretty good shape, except the roof and things. Now, one of the timelines is I did paint the building in the last 30 days. There
I've
was some
seen
paint,
that.
and I'm not done yet, okay? And I agree with you, it's not the best looking. But I tore the back part down in these COVID times, and just to give you a little history on your neighborhood, when we were doing the front building, I offered over 30 people, and I brought one person with me to work for $25 an hour. We went up to even $30 an hour to get us help, because remember all the cinder blocks? There's thousands of those cinder blocks to load and to get them. There's a lot of handwork on that, okay? On the back building, again, I brought one person, we did it all ourselves. My jeans are dirty today, if you look, because of the fact that I was picking up wood over there. I've been working over there a little bit every week. I know you don't notice it, and that's okay. But,
No, I notice it. It's just been a long time, and it's still a mess.
well, you said a year, and I tore down that back building in May, as Mr. Bannon said. So, you know, I got a machine out there, we tore the we do all the work ourselves. It's very hard to find contractors, as I talked with John before the meeting, okay? He does all his work that he's been doing lately himself. I do all my work here in town myself. It's very hard, unless we have to have a licensed person involved, it's very hard to find help here in town for small projects, okay? That building to tear it down, I've done, between the two buildings, probably $60,000 worth of work if I were to hire it out. I'm doing it myself. And we've been slowly but surely, I take care of all the neighbors, I do whatever they want, I let them borrow my lawnmower, whatever I can do. I know it's not perfect, but the property's not making a lot of money for me either. What else do you want me to do right away? What would you like? Because I'll do what you like. I'll take you a tour there tomorrow if you want.
No, I've been there. I don't need a tour. All I'm saying, I don't have a list of things for you to do. I'm just saying
I've been working on it
that
every week.
based on the factors that we have for issuing a license, you seem to have a lot of negatives.
A lot of what?
Negatives. You have a negative on this list in financial responsibility of the applicant. You have some negatives in terms of the design provided is limited. As
People like to have a
Alderman
beer when
Verghese
they
said, you
eat a
haven't
sandwich.
provided, huh?
People like to have a drink when they eat in this town.
I understand that.
I asked
but-
100 people when we were open, from all ages, from 23 to 83. That's why I'm here. I mean, has it been tough? Last time I checked, over 300 houses for sale here in Macomb.
What does that have to do with your liquor license application?
Well, because I used to own quite a few of them.
Alderman Carper.
I'm done.
Thank you. Alderman Annette Carper.
Mr. Kokel,
Yes.
I want to start out by telling you that I want you to succeed. We are hurting in this town, and we need businesses.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yes. My concern here is that with this liquor license here, that you are promising that you will limit liquor sales to 60%.
Yes.
I have concerns with that. My concerns are from a few different things. Moments ago, when Alderman Verghese asked you what your hours were, your hours initially were 9 to 11, and then they were going to be 9 to whenever the liquor sales allowed it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And then Alderman Carper has also brought into notion here the history that you have had with our city.
It's
So-
only on that one property.
Okay,
though.
I feel, Mr. Kokel, that you're deferring. Your liquor license application states that you have been behind in your loan payments. You have had a history, you've had to catch up with your property taxes here in Macomb. And the properties
I pay
that
my
you've
property-
owned,
I pay my property
and
taxes
the properties
on
that you've
second.
owned have not been in very, really the greatest shape. So my point here,
I've never not
Mr.
paid my
Kokel.
property taxes for the record.
My
I
point
pay it
here-
on the second installment.
My
like
point here,
most
Mr. Kokel,
Americans.
is
Mr.
that-
Kokel, Alderman Carper has the floor, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry.
My point here is that past behavior is the greatest predictor of what your future behavior is going to be. I know from my history in the food and liquor business that liquor makes more money than food. You make more money on liquor. And I get it. You're three blocks down from the university neighborhood. I get it, and I understand it, and I want you to succeed. And I've been to your place, and I've had your meals. I've also gone to your door when there were open hours posted and there wasn't anybody there, and that was pre-COVID. So my suggestion would be to follow Alderman Vergese's suggestion, get your affairs in order, and come back and ask us at a later time. And maybe, put it in a more positive light for us, so we can have greater faith.
Thank you. Mr. Kokel, go ahead, sir. Do you have anything else?
Money's tight because of COVID.
Understand.
on all these projects here in town.
Alderman Moon, did you have a question?
Well, I'm just going to comment on the license application itself. I'll start with the drawing. I won't put scale drawing in front of it, of the facility. I think a little more professional drawing, you know, buy a sheet of graph paper and put it to scale. That just seems very unprofessional. Business plan, this is not a business plan. It should include your hours. It should include maybe even a menu, projected. It's just so incomplete that it amounts to nothing. And I would, I'm not sure if I was in the position to weigh in on it, I wouldn't accept it and say we won't even consider it until you write a proper business plan and a proper scale drawing of your facility. That's all I
Like to
have.
hire an architect?
No, I've been through this. I get a piece of graph paper and you do 4 squares to whatever you want to make it scale to. It's not hard to do. And if you can't do it, then maybe you shouldn't be in the bar business.
In the restaurant business.
Anyone else? Mr. Krokel, I appreciate the fact that you did clear up one of your comments there. You indicate that you had indicated when Alderman Vachesi asked you about if you were current on your taxes, and you said that you usually pay them on the complete second installment because the county's records indicate that they're not current, that you're late on the first installment.
They've never been sold. I don't like that.
I understand.
To pay.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else you want to add, Mr. Krokel?
No?
Okay. All right. This will be placed on the agenda for second reading and action on Monday night. Item number 2, discussion on swimming pool regulations for the city of Macomb. There's a memorandum in your packet from the Community Development Coordinator regarding some current issues they're dealing with regarding swimming pools in the city. John, could you go over the memo and what you're recommending?
Thank you, Mayor. The City of Macomb has adopted the 2012 International Building Code, and the Unified Development Code refers to the building code for the standards of the barrier that must be around the pool. It has been the City of Macomb's precedent to use the solid barrier surface to regulate existing above-ground pool walls as a barrier. The technology for pools has advanced, and since the code was written, and there are a large amount of soft-sided pools both within Macomb and around the country that are coming in that do not meet the strict criteria of a solid barrier surface per the International Building Code, and staff would like some clarification and some guidance on what council would like or would like in that barrier. The staff would prefer, and it's the recommendation of staff, that staff be given the direction to draft an ordinance treating soft-sided pools similar to hard-sided pools, maintaining the 48-inch requirement, maintaining the requirement that they have a lockable ladder if they do not have a fence all the way around them, and other safety precautions. There is no consensus across municipalities in Illinois on fences or using existing pool walls around pools in Illinois. Quincy requires a fence. Galesburg allows the side of the pool to be counted as a barrier. The verbiage in Galesburg reads, when an above-ground pool structure is used as a barrier or where the barrier is mounted on top of the pool structure and the means of access is a ladder or steps, the ladder or steps must be capable of being secured, locked, or removed to prevent access. It's a recommendation of staff that council give direction that staff draft a similar a similar ordinance with similar language to guide the safety barriers for pools. If council would prefer that fences be required upon around all pools, staff is open to that. What staff would ask that we avoid is treating soft-sided and hard-sided pools differently, as that creates code enforcement challenges. Again, staff would recommend allowing soft-sided pools where it is at least 48 inches and is installed properly with a building permit, to be allowed to count as the barrier around a pool. But if council would prefer, staff would be amenable to having a fence be required upon all pools moving forward. Staff would recommend that in such an instance, existing pools be allowed to be grandfathered or legacied in their current state, as long as they have a lockable ladder. That is to say, we would prefer not to have to go back to those existing pool owners and say they have to construct a fence if they've already constructed their pool without one, as long as they have a lockable ladder to maintain safety. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the council has.
How are you enforcing this right now? What is the current status of how you treat people who put pools in their yards?
The current status of enforcement is that under the solid barrier section of the International Building Code's pool section, a hard metal-sided pool wall, as long as it is at a minimum 48 inches tall, counts as the barrier. But a soft-sided pool, even if it is 48 inches tall, that wall is not allowed to count as a barrier, and so they would have to construct a separate fence.
So are you requiring people who have soft-sided pools to put up fences?
Yes.
And have they been complying with that?
We with COVID-19, there have been a great deal of pools that have come into Macomb recently this year, and we have a list, and we have sent them a letter. The concern is that many of these properties may not possess the financial resources in order to construct a fence, and so the current code is going to require the Office of Community Development to go through our procedures and possibly issue tickets on these properties if they do not construct a fence or make a plan to do so in a reasonable manner.
But you're not currently enforcing the law that we have in our ordinances right now, then?
No, we are, but our city code refers to the International Building Code.
I understand that.
And so under that code, the metal hard-sided pool would count as the solid barrier.
Okay, but what about the soft-sided pool?
It does not, and so we've been sending people letters on it. But if we're going to need to move beyond sending written notices to something a bit stronger, and we would like direction from council on if we are going to require that be required to force people with soft-sided pools to build a fence, or not, and we would prefer to treat soft and hard-sided pools similarly, as it's a code enforcement challenge, particularly looking from the public right-of-way to the backyards and distinguishing that on visual means alone.
But under the law, the ordinances we have right now, soft-sided pools either must be fenced or...
Correct.
And we're not enforcing that, you're saying?
People should be pulling a building permit, and
Tell me if you're enforcing fences around soft-sided pools.
we are enforcing it.
And
but
are
it's-
people complying?
I would say that there's a variety of compliance, and it was brought to our attention, again, with a lot of these new soft-sided pools, and so we are moving to enforce, and we've sent out quite a few letters, and my concern is that that's going to put some people of limited financial means in a challenging situation this summer.
So you're saying that limited financial means is going to stop enforcement of the
No,
law we
it's-
currently have on the books?
No, it's not stopping enforcement. We've already sent the letters, and then we would send a second notice, and then we move to tickets.
Okay. So you're in the process of enforcing?
Oh, yes, we've sent quite a few letters, and then those letters will go to final notice, and then that final notice will go to a ticket. And I think moving forward, our office needs to do a better job of publicizing that everyone needs to pull a general building permit for a pool. The minimum cost is $22. If it's under $1,000, if it's under $3,000, it's $33. It's not a significant expenditure to make sure the pool is installed properly. And then the Office of Community Development can make sure that a lockable ladder is in place or a fence to maximize safety for the neighbors. Some of these were not installed with a permit, and therefore we're going back and making sure that they adhere to those basic criteria. Right now, one of those is that soft-sided pools must have a fence. So we would prefer that we could treat soft-sided pools and hard-sided pools similarly if they meet the height requirements. It's very difficult to enforce from the public right-of-way in terms of visual appearance. A soft and hard-sided above-ground pool look almost the same from the street in most backyards.
Alderman Carper, anything else?
No.
John, just for clarification here. So there's been a proliferation of soft-sided pools, particularly given the COVID. And you're seeing some inconsistencies in some of our peer communities in that they allow it to be compliant, even though they too have adopted the International Building Code. So they're allowing for an exception. And I think that's what you're asking for here, for us to
Yes.
look at amending an ordinance to allow that.
Yes, the city has, when the city adopted the international building codes, the city exempted many sections of those codes in order to better fit the context of Macomb. And so staff would ask that we do a similar ordinance to exempt Macomb from this, adopting all of the sections of that, of the international building codes pool regulations, with the addition of a criteria allowing the barrier or the wall of a soft-sided pool at least 40 inches to be used as that barrier.
Thank you. Alderman Carper.
Thank you. So John, I just wanted to know, what date were the letters sent? How long ago have those been sent? And what's the timeline for them to for our residents to respond?
We sent at least 1 or 2 letters a few months ago, and we sent probably about 10 more last month.
Okay.
And we were generous with the timelines on them, as a fence is not a simple fix. You know, refuse tends to have a very short turnaround, but when there's a large construction expenditure, we tend to give 30 or 60 days.
Sure, I understand that. I think that a few months from the first couple letters that was sent has been a long time. And then you said you sent 10 letters. Now, when I hear that we've had an influx of pools, I think greater than 10 or 12, to be honest. When you say that there's been an influx of pools because of COVID this summer, I think a lot more than 10 or 12, to be quite honest. So I would like us to move, because I think what could be appropriate is that we ask the resident, the one we have to bring to their concern, to their attention of, call us and talk to us, and so we can talk to you. And you set a shorter deadline for that to occur, and then you can set extenuating deadlines after that. And then I had a question about, in regard to those soft inflatable pools, is there a height limit to that, that we would require a fence?
Any pool under 24 inches does not require a barrier. So these pools that we're discussing are not inflatable. They're soft-sided pools with a rigid frame, either metal or resin. And so they would be, and they would, for the barrier wall to be permissible, they would need to be a minimum of 48 inches.
Okay, great. And then I guess I just also want to say, as a mother, this is all about safety over, the cost. When I had small children, I certainly wanted neighbors' pools to be covered, and when I had a pool, I certainly was very safe about that. So first and foremost, I think it's about safety of children in the pool. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And one of the provisions of what you're asking for in this recommendation, John, is that there be the ladder either be removed or become lockable so that it limits access.
We would prefer a lockable ladder. Right. And I think that staff would ask that council allow the soft-sided pools, but if the pool wall is used as a barrier, whether it's soft or hard side, we would like a lockable ladder, and that should not be legacied or grandfathered. If there's no fence around the pool, staff concurs with the alderman that safety is a priority, and a lockable ladder in the absence of a fence is a necessity.
So my only other caveat would be, if you require a lockable ladder, then that requires enforcement, and that, so, you know, then that means literally someone from the city has to go on, you know, occasion and monitor those ladders, if that's a requirement that you're going to make.
Well, unless there's
Me-
a complaint, and then staff could be invited upon a neighbor's property, in which case it's much easier to view.
Okay, all right.
Alderman Moon.
Couple questions came to my mind after a previous discussion we had about this. The lockable ladders, if a child or someone was able to get into the pool not using a ladder, is the ladder still on the water side where they can get out, or?
I believe so.
I don't know.
I believe so, but I would need to verify with different models of
'Cause
ladders.
I could see where that could be a problem if a young child would fall in and couldn't get out.
The alternative
I
to a
don't know.
locking ladder would be to remove a ladder,
Right.
and in that
That's
case, there would
kinda-
certainly not be any ladder in the water.
I had one of those ladders before I built my deck, and the inside stays in the pool, the outside can either flip up and lock at the top so you can't climb it, or there's another variety where you can close almost a gate across the outside ladder, but the inside would still be in place.
Just was curious. It was brought to my attention. The other thing is, if they would, if they have a 48-inch, I don't even know, are those soft sides 48 inches tall? Are they really?
They've really made some advances in it.
The hard or the soft, if they would put that into the ground, say 12 inches, now they're only 36 out, so they're not compliant, right?
If there's significant slope and the level, you know, the leveling process does require the pool to be placed, they
Right.
might require a fence on part of the pool regardless of
Oh,
know,
so if it's on a
walls.
hilly
Mhm.
side, they could,
Mhm.
they'd have to level it, but,
Mhm.
so as long
Yeah.
as the exposed side is still the 40,
Mhm.
yeah,
And
that
some of
seems a
the
little suspect.
some of the pools are 54 inches, and so you would have 6 inches of
Right,
of
right.
margin. Obviously, if the slope is extreme, they probably need a
This
fence
is-
regardless.
Very unfamiliar territory to me. I've only dealt with in-ground pools. And it's pretty cut and dry what you have to do with those.
Mhm.
So,
And, you know, this is a minimum standard, it's not a maximum. Any property owner with a pool above, you know, above-ground pool could choose to build a fence entirely enclosing the pool. This is a minimum that they would be held to. And obviously, there are several pools that do not have a fence and that are soft-sided, and so therefore, we would like clarification and guidance as we go forward.
Any other questions for John? Well, absent an objection, we would go ahead and draft an ordinance for your consideration. Hopefully you have it for next week. This is a bit of a timely issue, given the heat and the proliferation of these types of pools in the community, implementing many of the recommendations that John has placed before you this evening. So unless there's an objection to that, that's how we intend to proceed. All righty, hearing none.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. While you're there, an update on the complete count census committee.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're
Bit of a
welcome.
lighter topic. So I just wanted to give people a few notices as the census continues to get closer to non-response follow-up. The census is going to send an email response or an email reminder to all households that it has contact information for in census tracts below 50%. Luckily, we only have 3 in the northwest quadrant that are below 50%. But those, any household in that area that the Census Bureau possesses an email address for should receive a reminder. So if the people in those areas do get an email from the Census Bureau, they don't need to click on anything, but it's reminding them to go to 2020census.gov and fill out their census. People should also get a final postcard in the mail as we move forward, reminding them to fill out the census. And non-response follow-up should begin nationwide on August 11th. So people are going to be going around. I've talked to various people who are being trained right now in Peoria and Burlington and in different communities to come in from Macomb. So census enumerators will be out in August. And if any come to your door, please just treat them with respect and fill out the census if you haven't done so already. And the best way to avoid that, if you're worried about COVID, is to fill out the census right now. So we appreciate it.
Thank you, John. And those folks that will be coming will have appropriate ID to verify their credibility.
Absolutely. They'll have an appropriate census identification, and they will have an iPhone issued by the Census Bureau, and they'll be taking all of the census information on that iPhone. So it'll be completely electronic.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions for John regarding the update? Okay. Any other business this evening? A couple of things I'd like to remind the community about is the city's citywide cleanup dates, again, will be the week of August 10th through the 13th, and then a follow-up on the Northwest Quadrant, a second pickup only on Monday, August 17th. And I would encourage folks to contact the city's website, because there are a list of items that are not acceptable for pickup during that. And then we would also remind people in the community that shouldn't be putting it out yet. There are several locations that I have noticed, and I know John and his staff are trying to do their best, but these items should not be set out yet. They should be set out as you would your normal pickup day, no more than the evening before. So I know we're all anxious to get things cleaned up, and we'll just remind everybody that it's the 10th through the 13th and not before. I also like to take a moment to thank the NAACP branch of McDonough County. There was a very nice memorial service honoring the late Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian yesterday at his homestead on East Adams Street here in the community. And for those folks that did not have an opportunity to join us, or because of the oppressive heat were not able to join us, that is available, and it's being played back on the Comcast Channel 15, as well as the University Television Channel on Comcast on Channel 3. It's also available on the Downtown Development Office's Facebook page, and also the city's YouTube channel in its entirety. And again, we thank President Shabazz of the NAACP branch here in Macomb and McDonough County for affording us the opportunity to get together. The city, several city staff were instrumental in getting some of the logistics done as well, so we thank them. And it was a very memorable afternoon. So I don't believe we have any other business to come before you this evening. And entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Sorry. Wayland,
Aye.
Vajezi,
Aye.
A. Carper,
Aye.
Cook,
Aye.
G. Carper,
Aye.
Tammy Lee Brown Edwards,
Aye.
Moon.
Aye.
All ayes.
Motion carried. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.